That smile couldn't last more than 2 blocks. I tried so hard, God, I really did try, to hold on to it, to laugh off tonight's absurdity. She slammed her tiny fists against my chest as if that could shake me in the slightest. She screamed at me, tears streaming down her face, furious and blazing with anger, as if sheer rage alone could burn me to ashes. This girl. This damn girl. Her exterior was flawless, her features delicate and softly curved, her golden hair cascading like a waterfall, her voice a blend of shattered glass and honey, but what lay beneath? Beneath was fire, stubbornness, shards of porcelain pieced together by sheer willpower alone. Her face kept flashing back into my mind, uncontrollable and unwelcome. Her wide, green eyes were brimming with tears, stubbornly refusing to fall, until she could hold them back no longer. Her flushed cheeks, vigorously wiped clean by the sleeve of her shirt, bore streaks where the fabric had rubbed hard against her skin. Her lips, soft and rosy, either trembled into a small, wounded pout or tightened tightly as she struggled to stifle a sob. Her hair was tousled and wild, strands had slipped loose from the meticulously styled bun she usually wore, clinging softly to her cheeks, as if she'd been locked in an endless battle with the entire world and had barely managed to break free. Perfect. Her perfection set my anger ablaze. In art class, when people painted angels, when they thought of perfection, of fragility, of things so beautiful they seemed out of place in this world, they pictured girls just like her. And that's precisely what I hated about her. Every time I touched her, though it had only been 3 times, it felt like so much more. I couldn't help but fear that I might somehow break her. She's like blown glass, beautiful beyond belief, yet fragile to the point of breaking. That makes me furious. Because I know the truth all too well. I know that ballet dancers are extraordinarily resilient. I know their muscles combine endurance, pain tolerance, and artistic expressiveness. I know they can grit their teeth and keep going, even when battered by injuries, pressure, and agony that would make grown men weep. And yet, in my hands, she feels as light as a feather. So tiny she's almost insignificant. As if she'd shatter at the slightest touch. Tonight, when she lunged at me and her fist slammed into my chest, I didn't even feel it as an attack. It felt more like a warning, a cry from some part of her soul that no one had ever truly listened to. That makes me furious. Furious at how fragile she is. Furious that she's still fighting so desperately. Furious at myself for caring about any of this, as if I'd stepped onto a battlefield I'd never chosen to enter. I clenched my teeth and quickened my pace. Tomorrow, I told myself. Tomorrow, I'll be back to being completely indifferent. But tonight, there was still one thing left to do. I arrived at my front door, pushed it open, and stepped inside. The TV was still on. Taylor was sprawled lazily on the sofa, mindlessly scrolling through his phone, one sock-clad foot propped up on the armrest, looking every bit like a devilish rogue. Seeing him so relaxed, completely oblivious, utterly uncaring, blissfully content, a string inside me snapped. Before I could even think, before I could slow down, I'd already crossed the room. With one swift slap, I sent the phone flying out of his hand. It skidded across the hardwood floor and thudded against the underside of the coffee table. Are you fucking crazy? Taylor leapt to his feet, his face flushed with shock and fury. Asher. Mom let out a startled cry from the kitchen doorway. Dad straightened up, his face full of confusion as he opened his mouth slightly. Calm down, he said, raising both hands as if that alone could somehow fix everything. I turned to them, my anger spreading like wildfire, hot, swift, and utterly uncontrollable. Calm down. I snapped, my voice sharp and cutting. Do you even know what your son did tonight? Or, more importantly, what he didn't do? They blinked at me, their expressions blank and bewildered. I turned back to Taylor, closing in on him step by step, forcing him backward toward the sofa. I didn't touch him, not even a single gesture, but the sheer intensity of my presence was enough to make him flinch. Do you know that Penny was stuck outside tonight? I demanded, my voice rising sharply. All the way across town? No bus, no ride-hailing app, she couldn't get home at all. Taylor frowned, his reaction sluggish, as if he were struggling to piece together the truth while simultaneously seeming completely indifferent. She tried to call you, I snapped. She tried calling home, She exhausted every possible avenue. I pointed a finger at him, barely able to suppress the urge to grab him by the collar. She'd planned to walk home, alone, in the dead of night. The silence hung for a second. Then Taylor shrugged. Just shrugged. A scorching red haze began to blur the edges of my vision. I don't know when she'll be back, he muttered. She didn't text. You don't know? I repeated, incredulous. So you just left her there, expecting her to figure things out on her own? It's none of your business, he said, stepping closer to me and tilting his chin up as if he really thought he could win this argument sparked by his own carelessness. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. You're right. I said, it's none of my business. But if you're going to be an irresponsible jerk, at least pay a little more attention, make sure your girlfriend doesn't end up killing herself. Asha, Mom spoke again, her voice growing firmer as she stepped between us. She turned to Taylor, her face pale. Is this true? Taylor shifted uncomfortably. I don't know when she planned to stop, he said. I thought she'd call. You thought? I muttered with a low laugh. What a great plan. Dad rubbed his face with his hand. Taylor, we just talked about this morning, he mumbled. I was busy then. Taylor defended himself. Didn't she seem okay? I took a deep breath, trying hard to keep my emotions in check. She's fine because I went looking for her. My voice sliced through the air in the room like a knife. Taylor's face instantly lit up with joy. He patted me on the back as if we were filming some buddy cop movie. Thanks, bro. I owe you one. I shook off his hand. His casual, nonchalant demeanor made me feel sick to my stomach. Turning toward my parents, he tried to smooth things over. I'll give her a call, he said. I'll apologize. I'll make it up to her tomorrow. It's no big deal. No big deal. Right? To him, nothing's ever a big deal, unless it gets completely out of hand. To him, Penny is just easy to get. Convenient. Forgiving. He can't see how much effort she's put into carving out a place for herself in this world. He can't see the way her body trembles when she thinks no one's watching. He can't see that it's sheer stubbornness and pride alone that keep her going, but I saw it. It was driving me nearly mad. I took a deep, slow, and heavy breath. My gaze swept over my parents, who dared only to frown slightly without uttering a single harsh word of reproach. Disappointment felt like cold water dousing the fire of my anger. All they did was frown and sigh, no blame for Taylor's carelessness, just an effort to smooth over the current turmoil, as if this whole thing were nothing more than a trivial little squabble. It was precisely this boundless indulgence that had made Taylor forever incapable of taking responsibility, forever treating others' safety as a joke. The fury toward Taylor had already almost burst forth from my chest. The very indifference he'd shown had nearly plunged Penny into utter ruin. And the disappointment I felt toward my parents was suffocating. They'd never truly taught Taylor what it meant to be accountable. But none of it mattered. Nothing could change a thing. Without saying a word, I turned and headed toward the stairs. Because tonight, I'd saved her. I took her home, checked her wound, and made sure she wouldn't spend the whole night wondering whether anyone would come to pick her up. Tonight, I cared. Tomorrow, I'll be back to being completely indifferent.
When I woke up, the first thing I felt was pain in my breathing. It wasn't a sharp, stabbing kind of pain, not the kind you'd feel from an injury, but rather a heavier, slower, more agonizing sort of ache, as if all the weight of yesterday had settled into my body while I slept, anchoring me firmly to the mattress like a stone at the bottom of the sea. My arms wouldn't lift, and my legs felt like someone else's, so heavy, as if they'd been weighed down by exhaustion and drowned in it. I blinked a few times, adjusting to the soft morning light seeping through the cracks in the curtains. The room still lingered in that liminal space between shadow and daylight. Every movement felt like a protest from my body, a dull, all-encompassing ache that spread from my shoulders down my spine, coiled around my knees, and made the tendons in my feet so stiff that even the thought of standing up seemed impossible. For one fleeting minute, I just lay there, breathing carefully, as if any wrong move might tear something inside me apart. Usually, after a day like yesterday, whether it was grueling training or intense rehearsals, I know exactly how to take care of myself. Soaking in a hot bath to ease the fatigue, applying ice packs to my sore joints, doing slow, deliberate stretches to prevent muscles from becoming stiff and painful. But last night was different. I didn't take a bath, didn't apply ice, didn't stretch, didn't take deep breaths, even forgot to really think. I'd just gotten home. Or, to be more honest, Ash had practically dragged me home. Then I collapsed onto the bed, clothes still on, utterly exhausted, unable to move. I'd even forgotten all those daily habits that should have kept me from ending up in a morning like this. I shifted slightly, trying to roll onto my side, and a sharp pain shot through my hip, radiating down to my knee. I muttered a low curse under my breath, then sank back into my original position, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, a pattern I'd been familiar with since I was 5 years old. Last night hadn't just taken a toll on my body, my mind felt heavier, too. For some reason, my heart was battered and bruised as well. I found myself thinking about what had happened on the sidewalk, the laughter, cruel, ugly laughter. And then there'd been that sudden, suffocating fear, when I realized there was no escape, no way to talk my way out of it, no charm or evasive maneuver that could save me. Then there was Asher. He seemed to have appeared out of nowhere, as if summoned from every fragment of my shattered, terrified self. He stood between me and the darkness, his voice slicing through the night like a weapon. His hands, hard, steady, and brimming with fury, even though they didn't touch me, felt as though they were holding me up. I closed my eyes, trying to ward off the sudden wave of pain. I was safe now. It was all over. It was behind me. But my body still remembered that fear. My heart did too. The clock on the bedside table showed 7:14 a.m., its red digits glowing far too brightly. First period started at 8:30. In theory, I could make it in time. If only I could drag myself out of bed. If only I could force my muscles to obey. If only I could pretend not to notice the faint tremor in my fingers as they curled around the edge of the blanket. But today, I don't want to force myself anymore. I fumbled blindly for my phone. The cold glass slid smoothly against my palm. I scrolled through my contacts until Taylor's name popped up. Without thinking twice, I hit the call button. After just 2 rings, he answered, with a voice still hoarse from sleep, yet warm as always, just like it was every morning when he first woke up. "Hey, Penny, are you heading out?" I rubbed my face with my hand, trying to ease the tightness in my chest. "Not yet," I said, keeping my tone as light as possible, as if I were just a little tired, rather than barely holding myself together. "I feel absolutely awful. I'm thinking of skipping first period, stretching a bit, and just trying to relax." There was a pause, a very brief one. Then Taylor asked, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. It's just soreness. I was so exhausted yesterday." "Do you want me to come over?" he suggested immediately, without a hint of hesitation. "I'll skip first period too, really. I can just drop by and stay with you until you're ready." For a fleeting moment, I almost said yes. The word was already on the tip of my tongue because right then, the thought of not being alone sounded truly, truly appealing. But something held me back, a subtle, quiet, yet stubborn something that was hard to put into words. "No thanks, I'm fine," I said, my tone lighter this time, forcing myself to smile. "Go ahead. We'll see each other after class." "Are you sure?" Taylor asked, still gentle, still trying so hard. "Yeah, I promise," I replied, though deep down, a tiny part of me wished I hadn't said that. He hesitated for another second, then let out a sigh. "All right. I'll bring you a cup of coffee. Make it extra whipped cream." That made me smile, a small, genuine smile. "Great. Thanks, Ty. Text me when you're on your way out?" "I will. See you later, babe." The nickname lingered between us, and I let it hang there for a moment, warm yet somehow distant. Then I whispered softly, "See you later." We hung up, and the silence that followed felt unusually loud. I let my phone slip from my hand onto the mattress, then lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling as though all the words I hadn't said were like another bruise, pressing heavily against my chest. I could have said yes. I could have let him come over, let him pull me into his easy warmth and simple tenderness, pretending, even if just for a few hours, that something deep inside me hadn't changed at all, but something inside me, stubborn, tiny, yet tinged with a flicker of intensity, simply wouldn't let me do that. I turned onto my side. Every inch of my muscles groaned in protest as I shifted. I pulled the blanket tighter around myself, keeping the world at bay for just a little while longer. My jacket's zipper got stuck halfway. It was bound to happen, of course. I tugged at it stubbornly for a few seconds, muttering under my breath, then finally gave up and yanked it right off my head, leaving my hair charged with static electricity. At least I'd moved. That was something, at least. The house was unnaturally quiet, a deep, oppressive stillness that comes only when you're truly, utterly alone. There were no clinks of dishes from the kitchen, no dad cursing at the coffee maker, no mom off-key humming some long-forgotten 80s tune. Just me, my breathing, and the low, languid creaks of the house settling around me. They're still attending the conference, probably drowning in endless breakout sessions, handshakes, and small talk, and those peculiar beige-hued hotel breakfasts that smell like sadness. I stuffed a granola bar into my bag, glanced briefly at the mercilessly ticking clock on the oven. 8:32 a.m. If I don't leave soon, I'll miss my second class too. After everything that happened yesterday, skipping an entire day of classes felt dangerously close to giving up. No way. I shoved my ballet flats into the side pocket of my bag, slipped my phone into the hoodie's pocket, and hastily tidied at my hair, though if no one looked closely, it might even pass as deliberately tousled chaos. But even as my hands went through the motions mechanically, my mind kept drifting back to last night. It wasn't the worst parts, those encounters on the sidewalk, or the shouts, that bothered me most. It was the moment that came after. In that instant, I was no longer alone. Ash. His name surfaced in my mind involuntarily, stirring up a tangled web of emotions I didn't know how to properly put into words. I tried shaking my head to dispel them, but last night's image of his back standing firmly in front of me, the focused look in his eyes as he examined my wound, even those clumsy, half-hearted words of concern, they all lingered vividly, impossible to erase. Taylor's gentleness was comforting, like morning coffee or a casual endearment, yet in my darkest hour of despair and helplessness, he was always absent. But Ash's toughness was scorching, like a light breaking through the darkness, like a lifeline in the face of utter desperation. He claimed he didn't care, yet he did everything that mattered most. The balance in my heart, which had always tipped toward Taylor, began unconsciously shifting, slowly tilting toward that man who wasn't gentle, but who gave me the most solid sense of security. Even I couldn't bring myself to admit this subtle shift. I remember how he stood between me and the darkness. His presence was like a wall, rough, solid, impenetrable. I recall the way he looked at me afterward, almost as if I were an idiot, as if he hated that I needed to be saved. Maybe he really did hate it. A shiver ran through me, and I pulled my jacket tighter, even though the house wasn't cold at all. It's just so stupid to feel upset over him. He's not safe. He's not gentle. Taylor is. Taylor has warm hands and an easy smile, and he'll add extra whipped cream just because he knows I like it. Taylor brings beautiful mornings and cozy evenings, the kind of stability I've been lucky enough to have. I love him. I really do. But sometimes, this world feels so much bigger than the little box we're trying to survive in. I shook my head vigorously, trying to shake off the thought, then zipped up my bag with all my might. Focus. Today was supposed to be a great day. Yesterday, I'd nailed the audition for the spring festival, and the judges hadn't just nodded their heads, they'd smiled. A genuine, nerve-wracking, fleeting smile that meant more than 1,000 standing ovations. I felt so proud of myself. I deserved that pride. As I was slipping on my sneakers, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting it might be a text from Mira or Taylor, but neither of them. It was Mom. I swiped the screen to answer, balancing on one foot. Hey, Mom. Good morning, sweetheart. Are you up yet? Please tell me you're up. I chuckled, gripping the doorframe to steady myself. I'm up. Barely, but I'm up. How's your favorite ballerina feeling? She asked, her voice bright yet tinged with a hint of worry she was trying hard to hide, but failing miserably.
Sore.
Tired. But it's okay. The audition went really smoothly. She snorted softly, clearly struggling to keep from overstepping and asking too many questions over the phone. Dad and I were just talking about you a minute ago. We're so proud of you, Penny. My throat tightened unexpectedly. We knew you could do it, she went on. No matter what the final audition results end up being, you should be incredibly proud of yourself. Honey, you've already won. I pressed my forehead against the cold door frame and closed my eyes. Thanks, Mom, I said, my voice softer than I'd expected. We love you. We love you so much. I know. There was some background noise, clinking plates, a waiter asking if they'd like more coffee, when suddenly I could vividly picture them, sitting in some unremarkable hotel restaurant hundreds of miles away, yet still taking the time to think about me. Text me after class, she said. I will. We'll be home in just a few days. Love you. Love you too. I hung up the phone and slipped my phone back into my pocket. The house still felt quiet, but somehow, it no longer seemed quite so empty. I slung my bag over my shoulder, put on my headphones, and headed for the door. Outside, the city had already begun to buzz. The cars sped by, someone down 3 blocks was shouting out a sales pitch, and the subway rumbled beneath the sidewalk, sounding just like a heartbeat. Without a second thought, I blended right in, letting the noise and the crowd carry me forward. My body still ached. Last night's memories lingered deep in my mind, clear and piercing. But that wasn't everything. In fact, it wasn't even most of it. I'd done brilliantly in the audition. I had people who loved me. And here I am, still standing, still moving forward. And today is mine.